I talk about all of this essentially overpriced, ridiculous, beautiful stuff that many of us will never even see in real life, but in a way that I hope is very approachable. And to see people say that in real life is really validating.
Welcome back to The Materialist. I am Mark Bridge, the founder and CEO of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry. And my guest today is Cassie Thorpe, content creator, cultural commentator, and the undisputed queen of tiny bag energy. Through YouTube, Instagram, and her new Substack, she brings humor, insight, and honesty to luxury fashion and to why we love the ridiculous things that we do. Cassie, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here, and what a fabulous intro. My gosh.
Are most of those things true?
Yeah, they're all true.
Okay. You want to embellish on any of them?
Oh my gosh. Yep, Substack is my newest thing. That's been exciting, because I think that when it comes to
Was
being
the
a content
breakout
creator,
for you YouTube?
Yes. YouTube has always been my sort of like number one. And that is almost like where I put all of my energy. As long as I do my 3 videos a week on YouTube, everything else comes secondary kind of thing. But it's been nice with Substack exploring a different medium, because I think with social media, everybody wants you to do the videos, and it's nice to write and explore that.
And how did you get here? Tell us where you come from and what either meandering or straight line path led us to today.
Much meandering. My origin story. So, always loved fashion. Grew up with a mum who was like buying Vogues religiously every month and all of that. And that was always something that I thought, oh, I might go into fashion. I decided to continue down my path of studying economics and all of that, and I did a fashion internship in uni that was honestly the worst experience ever. I quit via text after a week. I was like, okay, I can't work in fashion in this respect.
What were you supposed to be doing?
I was a PR intern for a brand that probably shouldn't be named, and most people wouldn't know them anyway. But it was just, they never told you when to leave. So I was just there working deep into the night, and they wanted me to essentially put on their London Fashion Week show for absolutely zero budget. And I was like, I don't know if I'm equipped.
So that's
actually.
an idea.
Yeah, exactly. And of course they wanted the bells and whistles and for it essentially to look like Versailles, but having not spent a single penny.
Out of sugar cubes.
Exactly. So I was like, I think I'm out of my depth here. I don't know if this is what I want. And yes, I shamefully quit via text. And then I went on with my life, pursuing the economics path. Ended up working for BP, the energy company, for 6 years. And
was this when they were going beyond petroleum, or they had receded back into being in favor of petroleum now?
They were starting their beyond journey
okay.
At the time. And yeah, struggled with this. Do I want to stick down my sort of corporate England path and climb the ranks and stuff like that? Or I've got this thing nagging in the back of my head that's screaming about ridiculous bags and shoes and clothing. So I decided to start a blog. And I was like, this is how I'll get my energy out.
And were you screaming about those things to your friends? Were you screaming about them in your head? Where did this conversation exist before it went to the metaverse?
Exactly. It was always something that, like, in my friend group, people would come to me for advice on, because they knew that this is what I knew more than the average person about. So it was always there. I think I'd always drag people into the conversation whether or not they wanted to be a part of it, and then I'd see their eyes glazing over and I'd be like, okay, I think my time is up now. Yeah. Exactly. So I started this blog, and then I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right medium, whatever, which is funny because I now have started Substack, and isn't that the same thing? But anyway. And then my boyfriend at the time, now husband, was like, I think you should try video. I think that your personality comes across maybe easier that way. And so I did, and I was like, I think I quite like this. Let me take it seriously for a year. And if I'm consistent and I put my effort into this and I grow, that's a sign. And if I don't grow, that's also a sign. And I grew. And then it came to a point where it was like, when I make the same amount from this as I do from my quote unquote normal job, then I quit. And
you were doing both.
I was doing both. And now looking back, I'm like, I don't know how I had the time. I just think that I was just a hermit, actually. But you sacrifice for the things that you're passionate about. So it clearly was no sweat off my back to stay indoors all the time. But so I decided to do that. And then the pandemic made my plans come a little bit earlier because BP was going to cut 10,000 jobs and they opened up something called voluntary redundancy. Is that a thing here?
I know of the term.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes. So I basically raised my hand and was like, I'll leave if you pay me to. And then they did. So I quit maybe 4 months earlier than I thought that I would. And I haven't looked back. It's been great, this weird and wonderful job.
And you came to the US at some point along the way?
Oh, yes. And then it's going to be 3 years in June since I've been here. And that sort of happened
On behalf of all of America, we're delighted to have you here.
Oh, why, thank you.
As the chief I'm not sure that I want to be the chief ambassador of America.
Either way, I appreciate it. But that basically happened because my husband's job was expanding, but we both decided to go for separate work visas because we weren't married. And again, it was almost a sort of, if everything goes right and we get approved, then off we go. And we did, and here we are. And I love New York. It's been the biggest change, biggest sort of blessing. And I just think that the people here are unmatched. In positive and some questionable ways. But also, listen, you are never without stories to tell.
And at some point on that journey, you said, I can do this. There are people out there who want what it is that I'm laying down. Was that some psychic moment, or you were really just looking at the earnings chart and going, okay, there's now enough of these people?
There was definitely that, because as with all things on the internet, if it's your job, it's all about the data. But it was also when I would bump into people in real life who consumed my content. And that was the weirdest thing in the world, because essentially I'm stuck in a room how many days a week talking to myself and then editing myself, and I'm actually very sick of my own face. But it's crazy to see an actual, oh, this is actually a human being. This isn't just a string of characters and letters on a screen saying, oh, I enjoyed this video kind of thing. That really made everything feel so real to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually something that is giving a little bit of positivity to people. I talk about all of this essentially overpriced, ridiculous, beautiful stuff that many of us will never even see in real life, but in a way that I hope is very approachable. And to see people say that in real life is really validating.
Was there a first conversation where someone's, oh, I know you?
100%. And it happened in Sephora, and it happened in New York. It didn't even happen in the UK. I was living in the UK at the time. And in 2019, my parents and I had come for Christmas holiday, and I was minding my own business, buying all of the wonderful beauty products that we didn't have in the UK at the time. And then, actually, the person recognised my mum first. My mum is very unique looking. Anyway, in a nice way.
Hi, Mum.
Yeah, exactly. And my mum was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm Cassie's mum, and Cassie's here. And then I met this subscriber, and it was just the craziest moment. But it's something that I will absolutely never forget.
Do you look forward to those conversations?
I love it. And it's weird, again, in a nice way, because people will say things that are so very touching. I've been going through this hard place in my life, and your videos have been a source of escape for me. And that just touches my heart in a way that I can only hope that my content does that, because that's just what it's all about. And there are times when I'm like, oh gosh, does anybody even care, and blah, 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 and am I just running my mouth about stupid things again? And it's things like that keep me going. And it's just so special. I would never in a million years have ever thought that me talking about exactly ridiculous, beautiful things will have somebody see me in real life and say, it's helped me through this dark time. But what a privilege to be able to have done that for somebody.
And what is it? Is it that you feel like a friend? Is it you feel like an escape? Is it you feel, what do you think that?
I think it's maybe a combination of all of those things, and also the fact that I like to keep things light. At the end of the day, we know that none of this all really matters, but it's fun and we like it anyway, so let's just treat it like that. It's an industry, especially luxury fashion, that is seen to be taking itself very seriously, and bringing a bit of lightness and a bit of comedy to that, I think, is why people feel that way.
And when you are producing, when you're scripting, when you're thinking about, all right, this is what I am going to talk about? Do you think about it like having a conversation, or is it, I don't know. I'm just so fascinated by, I'm not sure that I could sit down and do this by myself. There's something that's so interesting about having a dialogue, but you are presenting. This is
It's true. I think it all comes down to being an only child. I am so very used to talking
This is the
to
same thing you were
myself.
doing standing on the dining room table?
100%. What's the difference between me doing it without a camera and me pottering around my room anyway? So it came very second nature to me, I think, because of that, because I've been very used to creating my own entertainment. And I do very much approach it as I'm talking to a friend. And they're sat here and we're talking about this whatever topic and we're not taking it too seriously. And so I think that's why that kind of translates well to people, because that is how I approach it.
You have now mentioned twice this idea of, you didn't use the word frivolity, just the circusness of it, and the fact that these objects are in some ways very silly, and yet you are a deeply thoughtful and engaged person who does take these things seriously. And is that just the nature of the thing?
First of all, I really like the way that you said the circus of it, because that is the best description. It's, like I said, these things are so not serious in terms of the serious things that, happen
So
in the
define
world.
that, because I actually do want to engage with this, because I think it's a really interesting conversation.
I think maybe it's
What
the
is
way
serious?
that, oh gosh, it's the tough topics. It's the things that you open up the newspaper and see. And this isn't that, but it's a feeling. And I think that something that has always pulled me to fashion and the circus of it is that it just makes you feel, whether in a good way or a bad way, right? You've got something like J.W. Anderson's pigeon clutch that is the most ridiculous, if we're going to talk about ridiculousness, pieces. It's a plastic pigeon and its wing opens up and you can store things inside it. But my gosh, it's also brilliant. And you can't help that if you were to see somebody out and about carrying this thing, going, that is so weird and I love it. And so it's those things, it's these moments of joy, it's how putting on a specific kind of jacket can make you feel, and how certain items in your wardrobe can help you embody a person that you want to be that day. It's the feeling of it, and it's the fantasy and the escape.
Which is so useful in so many realms, and I want to come back to that. But first, to the way in which you bring your enthusiasm to it, have a unique voice that is incisive and joyful, but also analytical. Is that same Cassie the only child in her room, or has that evolved over time?
I think that's something that's definitely evolved over time. And maybe this is my little bit of economics in the background finally coming to play. I thought I'd put that to bed. But I think that this is me growing up, me stepping back from things a little bit and having a bit more of a, okay, let's have a broader view of this. What are the knock-on effects? Still within the realms of what I find interesting. So it'll be like, okay, this X thing has happened with this brand. What does that mean for us as consumers? What does that mean for the in-store experience, or how much we're going to be paying? And those things. And I think really putting myself into the shoes of what I am mainly, and that is a consumer. There are so many brilliant people that can talk about luxury fashion from working in the brands and that day-to-day and the behind-the-scenes that I can't speak about. But what I can speak about is if I want to buy this bag and why.
Why do you want to buy that bag? You talk about, I think my favorite part of each of your episodes is the beginning where we talk about addiction and then lean into it, which is just such a wonderful conceit. But what is behind the obsession? What is the attraction? Is it status? Is it beauty? Is it discernment and connoisseurship? Escapism? Is this some sort of existential response to the nihilism of life? What is the...
You know what? It depends on the day. And I think that We to lightly tread around status sometimes when it comes to luxury fashion and be like, oh no, I'm not buying it for that. I'm buying it because it's really pretty. But I think that's just entrenched in it. And maybe that's just how, deep I was in those Vogue pages as a teenager and things like that. But why do I buy them? Because I bought into the story all of these years, and it depends on the brand. There are some brands that I think I'm very emotionally attached to, like Alexander McQueen, Vivienne Westwood, Versace. Those were my big three starting in, and those were the ones that, the editorials that would capture me, and I would look at the ads and be like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful this thing is. Those are the brands that sort of started off the obsession. But then as time has gone on, it's been talk about the craftsmanship and the quality and these pieces that are meant to outlive you and passing it on in a legacy. And then in recent years, I think it was Camille Charrier tweeted or whatever about now looking at her wardrobe as an archive. And then that's how she makes her purchase decisions. And so I've started thinking that way and going, okay, if Vogue was going to come and open the door of my closet, would I be excited about these items? And am I amassing a collection of things that are different and interesting? Because luxury fashion is also about the classics. It's about the classic flap and the little black jacket and the this from that brand and what the history of these brands and what their brands have become now that have been built on. But also, how is this very me? How is this collection so undeniably Cassie that it could be nobody else's? And that's sort of fueled the fire of the obsession.
And if you were going to put on your anthropologist hat and describe this is what these tell about Cassie story would they reveal?
They would reveal different eras of my life. There is very much a through line that is still very me, but if you look at the sort of pieces that I gravitated towards in my early 20s and my late 20s and now my early 30s, there's some differences. And I still very much love and respect all of my previous eras. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is 15-year-old Cassie would have absolutely loved this. And that kind of always inspires me as well. But it is an amalgamation of taste that's evolved over time and beauty and how I think of beauty and how that's changed as I've grown up. And not just what I was told, I think, by trends.
What was beautiful at 22 that wasn't beautiful at 32?
Okay, maybe I've used the wrong term, because I still love this. But, for example...
What does not feel contemporary?
What doesn't tickle the fancy?
Yeah. What does not spark joy today that it did a decade ago?
Now, this may not spark joy, but it may induce sort of fear. The Avélégé bandage dress. Something like that. At 8, oh my gosh, I was unstoppable in it. I thought that this was the absolute pinnacle, and it was the tighter, and the tighter it was, the better it was, the brighter the colour it was, the better it was, and I loved that. And I think that even when I look at pictures of myself wearing it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, she thought she was killing it. And that's all that matters, really. And now I maybe look at that and I'm fearful. I'm absolutely horrified of how am I going to feel in that dress, but I still have that kind of respect for it. And maybe I'll just style it in a different way.
But it sounds like it did do its job at the time.
It did. And it's about what makes you feel confident, what makes you feel powerful, what makes you feel like you can walk in a room and you've got this kind of thing. And sometimes it seems silly that it's clothes that do that to you, but it's all part of it. I think it's about the mindset of confidence. And if clothes help you feel that way, then it's even better.
No, I think entirely. You talk about the power of the consumer and the role that the buyer and the wearer play in this whole story. Is that something the brands understand?
Yes, sometimes. I think that this whole kind of trend of quiet luxury I'm sure everybody's sick of it. I'm sick of saying it, to be honest with you, but it's a really good example because we had this massive trend that blew up out of, again, a mixture of things. It was Succession coming out at the time it did. It was things happening with economics happening at the time they did, and all of that started this whole quiet luxury, timelessness, no logo trend that is still happening now. But I think that it was so interesting because all of these brands whose aesthetic was never that, all of a sudden started to shift towards that. And so it's almost like they weren't even taking into account their customers, but customers.
The customer.
Exactly, as a whole, and making this whole shift. And now a lot of those brands are seeing the results of doing that, which maybe weren't as successful as they thought it was going to be, because that's not what your customers were coming to you for. And you're not poaching a customer from Brunello Cucinelli if you're Versace. So let's not pretend, and let's play to our strengths. Yes, in a way they're listening. I don't know if they're listening to the right ones.
Say more about that.
It's really been fascinating. If we look at a lot of the brands now who are succeeding in terms of financials, you've got Hermes is creme de la creme, top of its game, because it's never bent to anything other than what it is. It's been very much the tortoise in the tortoise and the hare. They're not here for the quick wins. They are playing the long game. And they're not particularly trendy. They might have a trendy-ish kind of bag, but even because it's Hermes, it's very low-key with its trendiness. And then you have a brand like Gucci, who has been experiencing really quite sad growth, especially as somebody who I'm rooting for Gucci. And it's been a bit sad to see because they had all this over-the-top maximalism with Alessandro Michele, and it seems, allegedly, there were a couple of quarters of slow growth, and then he got kicked to the curb, as it were, and Sabato De Sarno was given the job, and he took it in a 180-degree turn to something that was very much more minimal. It was not really about the Gucci logo, which is what the Gucci customer was very used to. And now we're seeing the effects of that, and its 20% growth has been going down 20%, and they are once again floundering and panicking, and have now decided that Demna is going to be creative director of Gucci. Do I think this is a good idea? No, but I'm also not the one making the decisions. But that is just case in point of how making too much of a big change because you want to fall in line and because you want to do the thing that everybody else is doing or the thing that's working for a lot of those brands won't necessarily work for you, because that's not what you're about. And people come to you for, in Gucci's case, that equestrian leaning, a little bit of the logo. If you're over the logo, you can tone it down a bit. You don't have to do a complete shift into something that almost seems unrecognizable.
And in between those two is where Chanel lives, or where does that seems like a hot button topic in your mind?
Chanel is an interesting one because Chanel was Karl Lagerfeld for so many years, and he sadly passed away, and it was given to his second in command, and although it seems as though the numbers weren't there, from what I was seeing on social media it was very split into two groups. It was people who really loved the commerciality of what Chanel was under Virginie Viard, and then people who were like, this is not Karl, I don't want it anymore. And that divide, obviously, had adverse effects because now they've got a new creative director. I actually think he might just be the right person for the job. I think Mathieu Blazy has that tongue-in-cheek funniness and being able to show the craftsmanship and all of the wonderful talents of ateliers in his work, with also that little bit of comedic edge that I think Karl was so great at Chanel. Even with the sets of the shows, they were so incredibly wild, and the Chanel supermarket, and then you could buy a bag that looked like a metal shopping basket. And I think that we maybe needed a little bit more of that. Maybe Chanel also went a little bit quiet luxury, and now they need to correct course. But it'll be interesting to see. That's something that I'm so excited to see what he comes up with in September.
And to the consumer experience, we talked about, all right, are the brands looking to their consumers? These are very expensive things that people spend a long time dreaming about. And it seems like there's an inconsistent experience in the actual purchase of them. Sometimes there's games that have to be played. Sometimes there's queues that need to be waited on. What do you make of what it's actually like to buy one of these products?
It is so wildly inconsistent by brand, by store, even within the same brand. And I think the pandemic sort of shifted things because now queuing was never really a thing before. Now queuing for really your main culprits are looking to be Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and sometimes brands outside of that depending on where you are. And then once you get into the store, you either can have the most incredible experience and you're, oh, would you like some champagne, madam? And is there anything else that you'd like to see? And you get matched with the most wonderful sales associate and you have the time of your life. And that's what it should be like 100% of the time. Instead, you might also get the experience where you walk in, you're being looked up and down, you don't feel comfortable even asking for the item that you're interested in, let alone looking around and seeing if there might be anything else that tickles your fancy because it's an uncomfortable environment. And there's almost been this thing of, in some ways, luxury fashion has become fast fashion, and because of that...
In what way?
In the fact that the pace is so rapid. Collections are dropping left and centre. People are buying more luxury than they were before, so there's more foot traffic in these stores. And so are SAs just not set up in some situations to deliver that experience every time? Or are they just not trained in the luxury experience and giving that to every person? I think that sometimes there is this sort of, if I'm not dressed in the right way, will I not be met with the same level of respect as somebody who is in the brand from head to toe? And that shouldn't be the case. Luxury also now more than ever needs to be courting the customer more, especially when purse strings are being tightened. How do you convince the customer that we're the ones to give your money to? And that is entirely down to the experience. And how do the brands make sure that they are giving that experience to every single person that walks through the store, and it's consistent, and you feel like you have just been treated like a queen, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden I've swiped my card.
And do the results of each of these brands correlate with the consistency of brand experience? Is Hermès doing a better job of that than Gucci did?
Good question. It doesn't necessarily correlate. Hermès is almost a complete outlier because Hermès have built their brand on playing hard to get. And much like that crush that we had in high school that was playing hard to get or whatever, you just want it more. And Hermès
they're the only ones who can get away with being hostile?
100%. But even then, they're not particularly hostile. They just won't talk about what it is that you want, and you'll walk in and go, hi, I would really love a Birkin 25 and whatever, and they're like, oh, we don't have any. We all know that they're all there, okay, but it's this game that has to be played and all of that. They're honestly the only ones that can get away with it
because the product is so desirable, because
yes,
the brand has been so reinforced over time. What are the foundations of that?
It's so entrenched in what is the pinnacle of luxury that nobody can come close at the moment. It's the history, it's the cultural relevance as well that I think is hard to manufacture from a lot of brands. The amount of times that Birkins are mentioned in TV shows, movies, worn by certain celebrities, name dropped in
on the bathroom
songs.
Of certain rappers' floor.
Exactly, right? All of this has accumulated it to be the absolute top of the pyramid when it comes to luxury fashion. And the game on top of that has created that exclusivity. The fact that you can't just go in and get what you want is exactly why you want it. And so they can get away with it in a way that other brands really can't.
And do others look stupid trying?
Some try to do it for specific products. Some, yes, do seem to be stupid for trying because it's, I don't know who you think you are, but the luxury brand across the street that I can get a very similar product from isn't going to give me such a hard time, so let me just go there. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of brands doing this with, I have this theory that a lot of the high-end brands have the Birkin of their bag selection. And this is the one that they try to gatekeep a little bit. And in order to emulate that same level of exclusivity as the Birkins and the Kellys and the rest of the Hermes quota bags. And so they try to do it in that way, which maybe you have to be a loyal client in order to be given access. You can't just buy it in any store and all of that. But it is interesting to see them try.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like too many of them have been successful in doing that. There's always desirable product. There's something that hits whatever and you can't get, but the durable things, that seems to be the only one. It is interesting that these global super brands emerged out of very small scale, primarily French, some Italian, a little bit of English, court makers. And there is still, I think, this uncomfortable way that they face the world. We don't really know what scale we are operating on. Yeah. Do you think that's right?
Do I think it's right, and is that what I want, are two sort of different questions, because either way I am benefiting from them and then more recent quote-unquote mass production. I can now buy the things that I wanted to buy with some limits. But yes, I like the fact that I can. However, I do think that there have been downsides to this in that there are these sort of like capsule collections happening every time, in every direction you look, every time you refresh your Instagram homepage, you're seeing another collaboration, you're seeing a new capsule collection. Oh, this is being dropped for Mother's Day, and this is for this, and this is for that. That it's no longer just the spring, summer, autumn, winter, pre-fall and cruise. It's 10 collections in between those. And it's hard to keep up. I think it's actually funny that we think that we have to keep up, in a way, because surely the whole sort of point of luxury fashion is to be able to pick and choose and not have it all. But I think that there is something to be said from scaling back a bit and not doing as much, and therefore not having as much inventory, but then that also means that there will be disappointed people. I don't know if you can win in that situation.
What is the balance between something feeling special and it feeling ubiquitous?
I think it's almost where you live. I think that we're a bit spoilt here because I can go outside and see so many different designer bags and whatever, and yes, I'll see the same suspects over and over again. But there are, where I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Yorkshire, I maybe wouldn't see a designer bag for weeks, if not a month or whatever. And it's just about where you are and the amount that you see. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, the Louis Vuitton Neverfull bag. I've seen so many of them. I'm sick of it. It's boring. And then you could live in some other part of the world, the country, wherever, and be like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this bag. So I think it 100% comes down to that. And I think that social media has played a part in that, because now you're like, oh my gosh, everybody has a Birkin. No, they don't.
The 7 people who show up regularly and your algorithm do.
Exactly.
I think there's also the part of, if you are part of a global tribe that pays attention to these things, you see them a lot.
Yes.
I rue a little bit the fact that you see the same things all over the world. You probably do if you're thinking about North Dakota or Yorkshire or wherever. I don't know enough about Yorkshire to actually conflate those two, so I apologize to Yorkshire. But I'm not seeing materially different things in the West End in London than I am in Soho, than I am in Dubai.
Sometimes it's just a lot of people gravitate towards the same thing, and it's practical and it works. Taking the Louis Vuitton Neverfull, for example, which is probably one of the most popular designer bags in the world ever, it makes sense why. It's easy, it's light, you can pack your life in it, you can use it for work, you can use it as a diaper bag, you can use it for running errands, whatever it is. There's a reason why it is so popular. And yeah, sometimes it is just everybody decides that, oh yeah, that's a really good thing.
What was the last thing that you bought that brought you joy?
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's actually a vintage piece. And it is a Alexander McQueen 2009 houndstooth blazer that honestly feels like it was tailored for me. I don't know how they got my measurements, but they did an excellent job of tailoring that specifically for my body. It's one of those pieces that you put it on, you zip it up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I am a superhero. I can rule the world. Nothing is getting in my way today. I don't care if inconveniences happen to me. This is only going to be a good day. And it just brings me so much confidence when I put it on. It's fantastic.
Where did you find it?
I got it on eBay.
And took the chance that this was going to be the glove?
Honestly, it was one of those things that was like, okay, it's listed as a 42 or whatever it was. I think I'm probably that. Let's hope for the best. And it came and I was like, oh my gosh. The sun has shone down on me today.
The Hallelujah chorus.
Exactly. But it's just one of those things that just makes you feel magical.
What do you see for trends in the world that are exciting to you?
There is a lot more personalization happening. And this has been something that's been happening over the last sort of year or so. You can definitely see it with bag charms. As noisy as they can be, that's a part of it, in that people wanting to make their item stick out from the crowd a little bit. How do I make this a little bit more me? And bag charms has definitely been a way of doing that. But I think that we'll see this across a load of different items. I think that Ralph Lauren has offered this for years, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that becomes a bit more popular, especially towards the end of the year, in that you can add all of these patches and personalized sweatshirts and rugby shirts, and they have a plethora of items to choose from. But customization in a world where we're seeing the same things over and over again is definitely going to be seen more and more in different ways.
I like that, and I've always been a little bit of a skeptic on personalization, and it goes back to the early days of Nike ID.
Oh, gosh.
I love shoes.
Yes.
And I've spent a lot of time looking at shoes, and I was very excited about this idea of I can design my own shoes.
Of course.
And you go in there and you play with it,
Yeah.
and it ends up looking terrible. And you look at things that are the actual production models, and they look great because they were designed by shoe designers.
Yeah.
And I like shoes. I am not a shoe designer. And so of all of the times that I have played with it, I have never once purchased a pair of shoes that I have designed because I'm bad at it.
Let me tell you, it's a good thing that out of the two of us, you're the one that didn't follow through, because I did. And it was hideous, and I got rid of them. Yeah, I had a pair of Nike ID Jordan something or others, and I think I really tried my best to wear them for a bit, and then I was like, this is actually simply hideous. But yeah, I don't have the talents. I don't know why I thought I did. But I'm glad that you're the one that came to the realization.
But your talents lie in a different area. Your talents are in styling and in curation. Of the things that people have made, this is what I bring in.
True.
You would not have been able to tailor that McQueen blazer for yourself.
Agreed. Yeah.
Let the people who know what they're doing do it.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
No, I agree.
It's one of those things that I'm interested in this from our business, because if you ask consumers, what do you want? They will say they want something custom. And then you give them something custom and they actually don't want it. And I think what people really want is something that feels uniquely like themselves. But I'm not sure that you know how to deliver that for yourself.
Yes.
Like, I love art, love photography, painting, sculpture, whatever. I can admire those things. I can find the things that speak to me. Give me a lump of clay and I'm going to throw it against the wall. I can't create that.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding where our strengths lie. But it's true. And I think then when it comes to like custom pieces, do you then have to make it easy? In that you're like, okay, you can customize it within these limits.
That's right.
And so you can't just be like, here is the world, but here's a little bit and some examples of maybe how you could make this more you. And then that seems a little bit easier. That's
a little bit what fashion magazines did as a job. That's a little bit what you do. All right, here is the world as I see it.
Yeah.
I'm not hoping to be Cassie, but I want your perspective on it.
Yeah, that's true. Gosh, I've never really thought about it that way.
Tell me about your relationship with jewelry.
My relationship with jewelry is a long one, and one that I don't even think I realised how much I loved it and how much importance I put on it up until maybe the last 5 years. One of my most prized possessions is my white ceramic Chanel Ultra ring that my parents got me for my 18th birthday. And that is not going anywhere. And even when it sits next to my engagement ring, and even when I got engaged, I remember somebody commenting like, are you not going to move that ring? Because it's almost, I think they thought it was a bit disrespectful that I would put this next to a ring that's symbolizing my sort of relationship and love and everything, which is funny because my husband thinks that's absolutely ridiculous. I told him about this and he was like, I've never thought of that ever, but okay. And it's not going anywhere because it almost like symbolizes my parents' love for me. And so my left hand is almost my love hand and the people that love me as opposed to just the one person. But it's grown from there. And I think for a long time, I would always be like, oh, I wonder what my jewelry style is. And I'd see people who had all of these stacks of rings and beautiful bracelets and necklaces and be like, oh, I wonder how I can create that for myself. But it has to feel so authentic. You can't just go and buy the same thing as somebody else's because jewelry is so very personal and sentimental most of the time. And as the years went by, I realised that, oh, actually, I think the basis of my jewelry style is white enamel and ceramic. And it all stemmed from that ring that my parents gave me. And I've built on that. And that's become a very standout thing when it comes to my jewelry. I will always gravitate towards those, and everything is built around those pieces.
For that ring, did you direct them to that, or they picked that for you?
They picked it for me. And it was something that I know that my mum had seen and been like, this is something that you'll have forever, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why she picked the white, because it came in white and it came in black. But she started something there.
And what else are you wearing?
So I have, actually, that ring is caged in by 2 stacking rings by Monica Vinada. I've never known if that's the correct pronunciation. Obviously, my engagement ring that my husband went to Concept 26 and did custom within the realms of his imagination.
Yeah.
That was very much the designer was like, I think that she would really like this. And he would be like, yeah, I think so too. I have 2 pieces by Susanna Martins. She is I believe she's originally Portuguese, but she's based in Dubai, and she's just fantastic as a person. And
this is also white enamel.
Also,
and
yes,
diamonds and gold.
Yes, and then I have one swirly whirly diamond ring by the brand Unsaid. They're a French brand, and they only use lab-grown diamonds, but that gives a little bit of height and interest. Then I have a white ceramic ring by Shea Jewelry that's curb links with yellow gold and white diamonds.
And were you involved in the design of that piece, or was there a collection that you worked on?
No,
with them?
that is my lavender bracelet.
We're not there yet. Sorry to jump ahead.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm taking my time. But
when you're talking about jewelry, you should. These are.
I have a rose gold Cartier love bracelet that was for my graduation from my parents. A Tiffany Elsa Peretti chunky little pinky ring there. The bone split ring. And then this was a gift from a brand called Sete, which is just a little, again, curly whirly little ring with a little diamond in it. And then for the bracelets are interesting because this one's from Costco. It was actually the first significant piece I bought for myself when I went full-time as a content creator. I was like, yes, let me make this questionable financial decision when I am now in a job that is not stable finanically.
But I'm going to do it in the most fiscally prudent way with the Kirkland signature variety.
There we go, exactly. This is it's just a tennis bracelet with a sort of hook feature by Simon G. a Cartier Juste un Clou that is actually my mum's, but she gave it to me because it's too big for her now. And I was like, I will gladly take that off of your hands. And then I have my collaboration with Shea Jewelry that is this lavender curb link chain bracelet with yellow gold and white diamonds in a cluster in the center and then in some odd links going around it.
And what is the significance of lavender for you?
Honestly, it didn't necessarily have significance. I just thought I don't see a lot of lavender pieces around, especially in ceramic. And I think that's an interesting shade and colour to go for. But it's also a shade that I don't think is particularly daunting, as some other colours might be, to wear in fine jewellery. So I thought that it would integrate a lot with yellow and white gold and rose gold pieces as well.
Excellent. And your La Bulgara ear needle that we picked out together here.
Yes, which I love and I always get compliments on. And I've just never seen needle earrings. Who knew? I'm obsessed. And also, people are very curious about its comfort. I don't feel a thing. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Gets me loads of compliments. I've just got a little dangly pear-shaped diamond from Ideal on my second piercing. And then what is here? Oh, another little set from Ideal. And then this ear cuff is also Susanna Martin's white ceramic.
Love it.
Yeah.
In jewelry, in fashion, in the world of wonderful brands and ideas in the world, are there 3 people who you think deserve more attention that don't get it?
Yes. Okay, so number 1 would be, in terms of fashion, Tolu Coker. She is, I believe, a London-based, UK, Nigerian, British designer. And she is just fantastic, especially with the Met Gala coming up and the theme of dandyism. I think that she is just brilliant. She creates such structure with her pieces, but they also feel very wearable and done in really amazing patterns and fabrics. So I think that she's great, and I think that she's somebody to keep an eye out for. In terms of jewellery, I don't know how long this brand has been around, but Atelier Norbar, Nawbar, I believe they're a Lebanese jewellery brand, and again, lots of white ceramic and enamel, lots of different colours as well, but really interesting, statement-y pieces that I haven't really seen anywhere else. Very unique. They have this collection called, I think it's called the Atom Collection, where it's all like little bubbles and each colour is named after the element. So like black is carbon and blue is hydrogen and the white is other one that I can't remember from my chemistry lessons. But that's a great range. And then finally, I have to just consult her name here. But I've recently come across Janice Blanchette. She has been creating some incredible pieces that, like, I just followed somebody who went to Coachella, and she had this incredible top that was just strings of beads, and it looked like water droplets. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is that? Who is that by? And I came across her as the designer, and she does clothing pieces, but also jewelry pieces, and just as an artist, full stop, creates these magical moments that look so ethereal and fairy and just beautiful. So yeah, I think she's worth a look as well.
Fabulous. And if people want to find you on the internets, where does Cassie live?
It's Cassie Thorpe, ITS Cassie Thorpe on Instagram, TikTok. If you're on YouTube, just type in Cassie Thorpe, Cassie with an IE, not with a Y. And on Substack, my publication is called Obsessions by Cassie Thorpe.
And are there dollar signs in the
There are
Obsessions?
dollar signs in those S's, but I think if you don't type in the dollar signs, it comes up as well.
It gives you, it redirects.
Yes.
Cassie, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Such a delight to chat with you. That's it for this episode of The Materialist. If you like this conversation and want to hear other conversations with interesting, thoughtful materialists, please like and subscribe to The Materialist wherever you get your podcasts. A huge thanks to Cassie Thorpe for reminding us that style can be smart, silly, and deeply sentimental all at once. You can follow Cassie on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and her new Substack, Obsessions. And as always, visit atpresent.com for the most exciting place to discover extraordinary jewelry. The Materialist is a presentation of At Present, matchmaker to extraordinary jewelry.